On this week's episode of the Joshua Mentality, we jump into an encouraging conversation about why you should finish what you started. All right, so get on in here and let's get you revved up to finish strong. You're listening to the Joshua Mentality. Hello, world, and welcome back to another episode of the Joshua Mentality. You probably can already tell in the energy from my voice that I'm amped. I am revved up for this week, and I can't honestly completely articulate why. I kind of got a few inclinations that I'll share here in a second. But first off, let's start with the most important thing, and that's you. Welcome back to another week of the Joshua Mentality. I'm your host, Joshua. I can't even remember if I said that already, but if I did, then twice is good enough. And this is, let's get down to like this. Let's start going down the line of why, some of the reasons why I'm excited and so, energetic for this episode. Number one, this is actually episode 37, which means those of you who have been locked in week after week, we've been together for 37 weeks. And I would love to just take a moment. I would love for you to take a moment and kind of give a top three of what have been your biggest takeaways and how have you grown listening to this? Because that's why I do it. That's why I'm here. I want to see you grow and move towards the success that your life was meant for. And that leads to, I guess maybe I should, that's a good segue. Maybe I should go ahead and welcome in those who are joining for the first time. If this is your first time joining in, I want to welcome you. The Joshua Mentality Podcast, if I were to give you a one-liner, this podcast is all about helping people experience the success that their life was created for. All right? That's probably the best way I can put it. And for this season, we've been talking about the mentality of success, which helps people identify purpose and define success for their life. All right? So those are just two kind of bookmarks I think are important for you to know as you lock into this podcast. And getting back to my list, though, this is also week 21. All right. So we've been together for 37 and we got 21 weeks left. And I'm thinking I'm just going to go through the whole, we're just going to ride out the whole year. And if you're wondering why those numbers don't add up, it's probably because I started a little bit early, into December, I think, last year. But I'm thinking we're going to just ride this thing out and see, and we'll judge from there what's next after we finish this season. But for now, let's keep it moving. And I went through the weeks. We talked about podcast number 37. What else? Yes. One more very exciting thing that I honestly can't even share yet because it's not completely done. But let's just say I have made arrangements to put a lot more focus into this work and what I call this a life resource, because that's what I want it to be for those who listen and who follow. But I want to give you more value. I'm already working on the book. I think that's going to be a great value add, putting all this together, especially the mentality of success. But I'm working on a few other things that I think will really, really add value to your life, okay? So just keep those things, kind of in your thoughts. Those of you who believe in praying, you pray for those things too, because I think it's really, really, really going to help, all right? And that's why I'm excited. Today, I kind of had a little bit of a breakthrough in some strategy around how we can do this and make it available for everyone. So I'm going to leave you on that cliffhanger. I know I hate cliffhangers too. That's why I only watch shows on demand, because I can't handle not being able to figure out what happens next. Okay. So forgive me for leaving you here, but trust me, it's worth it. All right. So with all that out of the way, all that excitement, it took a little time. I wanted to focus on that. I like to keep you all informed because you all support this podcast. So I like to let you know what's going on because I want to add more and more value as much as I can. All right. But for this week, let's jump into our conversation because I came today to encourage someone who has kind of either given up or you've just had kind of a rough year. Those kind of years where you start off real strong and real confident, and your outlook, your mentality is in the right place, and then the year 2021 just beats you down. And some of you have kind of thrown in the towel a little early, but I want to encourage you to get back in the ring, all right? And here's what we're going to do. I talked about this a little bit on IG this week, and I want to expand on the subject of finishing what you started. Now, here's the thing. This reel was posted, and I kid you not, I had to call my team. I kid you not, within 10, 15 minutes, it jumped to like 13,000 plays and kept going up and up and up. And I thought, man, what in the world is happening? Does that look like a hack? Because this is a good thing, but what is happening with all this engagement? And for whatever reason, and I can't really figure out why this resonated so much, but it seems like it resonated with the audience, and I think it's worth expanding on. I think it's worth talking about the subject of finishing what you started, and why that's so important. The first thing I think is really important is to talk about why we often don't finish what we started. And I've referred to this in the past, this whole what I call cycle of frustration. And the cycle of frustration it usually takes place when we're trying to build habits. Now, I'm going to go into a little bit of scientific human behavior here. If you've ever read the book called Atomic Habits, I think it's by James Clear, I want to say. Please don't hold me to that, but I believe that's his name. And I've probably mentioned this before on this podcast. It's a great book, but it talks about the compounding effect of building habits. And one of the important things to note about building habits is that early on in those first, 0 to 21 days, which a whole nother subject is that we don't really form habits in 21 days. That's a myth. But what does happen is from that 14th to 21st day of whatever habit we're trying to build, what usually kicks in is that we tend to revert back to old behavior. If we're going to have a relapse, a proverbial relapse for lack of a better term, it's going to take place in several spots. But that first gap, that first milestone is that 14th to 21 day cycle. That's when we kind of lose our way and tend to incrementally start to revert back to old habits. Now, here's how this relates to when we talk about the topic of finishing what you started. The reason why we often quit is because we get to that point, and the first time we fail or we don't show up or we don't honor our commitment, what we have is a letdown. We have a psychological, habitual letdown, meaning that because we failed to show up, we failed to honor that commitment, we tend to beat ourselves up and judge ourselves. And we immediately check back into depriving or self-sabotaging. And that can be mentally, that can be in our actions with just, trying to distract ourselves so we don't think about it. It can be in self-deprecation, which is just talking, I'll never be able to do this. I'll never be able to get that. This is what happens when we begin to kind of have those relapses or begin to relapse back into old habits. And so what stops us from finishing what we started is that we don't believe we can. We don't believe we can, and we don't believe we will. And that's a tough place to be in. It's a frustrating place to be in. And that's why I call it the cycle of frustration, because often what happens is we get to that 14 to 21 day mark, things break off, and we veer off the road and revert right back to where we came from. And then in a few months or maybe 30 days, we get right back on the road and we do it all over again and again and again and again and again. And this happened in my life. This is something I'm speaking from experience, because I've done this before countless times where I've made a commitment. Let's say I'm going to get back in shape. And then I go 90 days or not even 90 days. Let's say I go, about 14 days is where I'm like, man, okay, we got 2 weeks down. Let's get it next week. And then something happens. Something always happens, whether it be I do something wrong. Maybe I injure myself a little bit. Maybe, some event comes up and I can't get it in that week or something. Something happens that throws me off. And instead of trying to get back on track, what I've seen in my life is that I usually just revert back to the same old habits. And it's the second point I want to make. The first reason why we don't finish what we start, or why we always quit, when it comes to finishing what we start. The first reason we talked about was that cycle of frustration. The second reason, which I think we just segue into, is that we get a sense of accomplishment and satisfaction from just those first 14 to 21 days. And I don't know if it's because we've all bought into this lie of you build habits in 21 days. I don't know what it is, but going back to that working out example, and this is why I transitioned to this next point, is because I remember when it comes to those, if I go 14 days straight or 21 days straight, the body starts to look a little good. I build muscle a little quicker. So it's like, man, I feel like I've been in the gym for a month or 2 months because my body's starting to form muscle already. And that satisfaction can actually be a hindrance. And the same thing can happen in your eating habits. Let's say you're trying to lose weight. Let's say you are trying to build a certain skill or work ethic, or you're trying to stop procrastinating, or you're trying to practice better focus. All it takes is to either have a setback and a letdown, or to accomplish those 14 to 21 days and then be satisfied with that. Those are two of the most critical elements that cause us to check out and not finish what we started. And I'm curious, I unless you write in, I won't be able to know this, but I'm curious if any of those two, you would say, man, Joshua, that's so true. That's exactly what happens to me. Like, I would love for you to think about the things that you really wanted to accomplish, that maybe you set out this year to accomplish, and maybe you started off strong. What happened? What caused you to revert back to old habits? Was it something in your routine? Was it a loss of focus? Was it a loss of interest to where you thought, you know what, this is not even worth it? You forgot your why. What is it? What is it that caused you to throw in the towel and not finish what you started? You know me, I'm a big proponent for writing things down, capturing it, because that's when it becomes real. That's when we can monitor and measure it. If you're not one that wants to write something down, that's fine. You don't have to, but I recommend it. I recommend journaling these things because many coaches and trainers will tell you if you don't measure it, you can't hit the goal if you don't have a measurement system. And I'm just saying I subscribe to that thought, but you don't have to write it down. But I would encourage you, if you want to try something new, write this question down. Why have you, what has been the thing that usually trips you up? And then really write that down. Write down what it is so you can keep an eye on it, so you can monitor and measure it, all right? But that's just the conversation of why this happens. And I think that's important to establish. But now I want to transition you over to what can we do to prevent this? Because that's what we're here for. I don't want to just beat you down with everything every mistake you've made. I want you to leave today's episode feeling like you have at least one practical thing you can do. I want to give you at least one practical thing you can do to increase your chances of finishing what you started. And here's a little hack that I found works in my life. Okay. I talk a lot about service and how impactful and powerful a service-minded anything is. A service-minded goal, a service-minded dream, service-minded love, service-centered friendships. Think about it. Those are the best things that are rooted in serving people. Always has been, always will be. The same can be true with whatever your goal was, or whatever that thing is that you kind of short-circuited and have not finished. It could be school. It could be a business. It could be a relationship that you needed to finish off by forgiving or by adding closure. I mean, it could be a number of things. But here's what I want you to understand. Here's the hack I want you to try to implement to increase your odds and your percentage of finishing, okay? The things that I've been the most committed to, and this maybe just be my personality, so you let me know right in if this is something that you relate to, or you have another thing that works for you. I want you to write in on IG or something. But the thing I found that works for me, and when I've been the most successful, is when I attach whatever I need to finish to who it will serve. I found that I am most effective at finishing whenever I can attach what I want to finish to who I want to serve. That's a powerful thing. For instance, when there's things that if it were only about me and it would only impact me, then I won't get it done. Let's take this book, for instance, that I'm working on. This book has been something I've been talking about doing for years, man. Years. But you know what sparked it and said, you know what, Joshua, you got to get this done? It was seeing all the responses from this podcast. That was part of one of the biggest reasons why I say, you know what, man, we got to get this done. Because now I see that there really is a need, and people really can use some of the things that I believe would be useful in helping us to identify our purpose and define what success is for our lives. Like, I really believe that. And so that is the driving force that makes me want to get up early. That makes me want to invest time into writing, which is this has probably been one of the hardest things I've done. But I do it because I have you all in mind. I have my son in mind. I have my son's son in mind. I have your sons and daughters in mind. When you attach whatever you need to finish to the people or person it will serve, you will ignite more resilience to get it done. I promise you. I promise you. Those of you who are listening to some of my Lady Tribe members, TJM Tribe members, if you probably can relate, especially if you have kids. We can, kind of just be going through the motions, but as soon as you're responsible for another human being, it's like something else just awakens inside of you as a parent. Same thing with men. You think about back when you were in school, or when you had that goal of maybe going to school to play a sport. You were out every night getting up shots or practicing, or when you were getting ready to go to that certain school you wanted, you were studying. Why? Because you saw the end goal that it would serve a person or a people. Now, that person could have just been you. It could have been, hey, I believe this is going to serve me in my future. But that's still the same thing. You've still connected it to who it will serve. Because there's power in service. And so whatever that thing is for you, and we could name off a number of things. It could be finishing school. The question would be, why? Why do you want to finish school? Who will that degree or whatever it is, that certificate, who will it serve? How will it serve? How will it impact people? Whatever it is. Maybe you're getting a degree to be a nutritionist. I'm just throwing out names. How will it serve people? Well, it would help people live a healthier life. And you will have an impact on their life to the point where you can even extend their health. Maybe you're going to a technical school and you're learning to do a technical skill. How will that help people? Maybe you're learning to fix ACs. How will that help people? That'll help people in their homes from not dying from a heat stroke, right? Extending life. Helping people to live in comfort. Helping people that when they invite others to their house to connect, they have a comfortable living space. Like, you can connect it to so many things. Maybe you're not sure what you want to do, and that's causing you trouble to finish whatever it is, finish school, or figure out what career path you want to go. Well, the same technique works. Jump ahead. Who do you want to serve? How do you want to serve? How do you want to impact? Who do you want to impact? Because there's value in you. And when you realize that the biggest reason why you should finish what you started is because that will help you distribute the value within you, then that pushes us to get it done. That pushes us to get into communities where we can remember who we are and we can continue to maintain the motivation, inspiration, and focus to finish what we started. It is my goal, and I tell you all this often. That's why I show up here. That's why the commitment I have to finish out this year, this first season, it's not about the podcast. It's not about the followers. It's about the purpose, who it serves, and how it serves. And if you're going to finish, if you are going to finish what you started, if you're going to finish that dream or that goal, if you're going to pick that thing back up, you have to first connect it to who it's going to serve. And I promise you, if you do that, you will increase your odds of finishing what you started. That's all I got for you this week. I hope that helps. I hope that blesses someone and adds value to your life. That is the purpose and goal here. But I would love to hear back from whoever is seeing some results from what we talked about today or any other episode. I love hearing from you all. So if you get a chance, please reach out and let me know. I love the feedback. But anyways, other than that, I encourage you all to make sure you like, subscribe, whatever, man. Tell a friend, let's make sure that we are all sharing this podcast because there are many people who need it, who need to be reminded that their life was created for something. All right. So I'm gonna get on out of here. I think I've said enough for today, but you all have a wonderful West. Oh, did I just really do that? I just said West. Anyways, you all have a wonderful rest of your week, and I will see you right here, same time, same place next week, reminding you that success is your destiny.